Rebbe is going to explain something quite astounding. You know, Rebbe? I mentioned this technical aspect yesterday, and we'll see it relatively quickly. Okay, what we saw in Ois Ches, and it'll take us a while to understand this, but that the advantage of the drawing down of godliness through our Aveda below isn't just that it will be more powerfully expressed down here and affect the lower levels more powerfully because it's coming from the below. But the level of godly light itself is a more powerful level of light as a result of our Aveda. So in order to explain that, the Rebbe told us that the whole Indian, the big Chiddush that we saw yesterday, right? And anybody remember where the Sikha is? That's the home address of all this that we saw yesterday?
Yes.
No. Why try to remember? If you write it down, you don't have to try to remember. He's smart. There you go. You don't Nisan, Tafshin Lamed Beis. You don't write it down, you won't remember. You do write it down, you remember. It's as simple as that. Right? Kaneh l'cha chaver. Right? In Pirkei Avos means you should acquire for yourself a chaver, a friend. The Friedrich Rebbe said that it also means a kaneh, which is a quill, right? That they used to write with. A quill is for you a friend, because if you write things down, you remember them. You don't write them down, you don't remember them. It's as simple as that. Now, you might not remember it even if you write it down, but at least you've got it written down, so you go, wait, I wrote that down. And then you look, Yirah Nisan Tafshin Lamed Beis. Which, in that notebook that, I don't know whether we've ever mentioned it in Chassidus, we mentioned in Gemara down there. Right? That notebook that's a good idea to have. That notebook of those things you want to look at when you have time. That you don't have time now. So you write it down in a notebook, and then you're sitting around and you go, well, I have some time, let's see. And then you end up getting nothing done because you can't think of anything to do because there's so many things you haven't learned in your life that you say, well, maybe I'll do this, but okay. So you open up the book and you see, Yudalef Nisan, Tafshin Lamed Beis. Oh, look at that Sikha now. I always wondered about that Sikha. There you go. So you know what to do. The notebook of what to do when you have a little extra time. Okay, so the Rebbe explained that the whole purpose of the fact that the world was created, the way the world was created, was that you and I should have to fix it. And why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu want us to fix it? Because we would enjoy the fixed reality more by virtue of the fact that if we get something for free, we don't enjoy it as much as if we work for it. Was that the reason? He asked.
It's the way that Hashem created us. He created us in such a way so that way we would want to perfect the world rather than leave it as it is.
No, that's not what that answer said. Nahamad the Gisufa is. Right? He created us in such a way that we enjoy things more if we have worked for them ourselves than if we're given to them on a silver platter. Okay, that's true. But what's the problem with that answer for explaining why it is that the world has to be fixed? Mm-hmm. We learned this yesterday. But exactly, Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one that put that nature in us that we like things more, we experience greater pleasure from things that we're involved in than things we're not involved in. So create us differently, so we would be just as overjoyed to experience the fixedness of the world, even if we didn't do it. Right? The Abisha gave us that teva of the way Chazal express it. We saw it in the Gemara. Some of us, right? I want one of mine more than 9 of yours. Why one of mine? Because I did it. I worked hard for it. So I appreciate the tomatoes that grow in my yard more than the tomatoes that I bought in the supermarket. And if someone grows tomatoes in the yard, and anybody here, I'm sure everybody's here been at some table or at some point someone says, the tomatoes, I grew them in the yard. And they're very excited about that. Why did I get what's the big deal up that tomato's a tomato? No, that's not true. The tomato that I grew in my yard gives me more pleasure than the tomato I bought in the supermarket. That's how people are, right? Therefore, this is the basic answer that's given. It's given in the Zohar. Why did the Eibusher create the world in such a way that it has to be fixed? That you and I would enjoy the end result more because we were part of it. Okay. It's called Nama de Kisufa, bread of embarrassment. If you get something without working for it, it's embarrassing. Yes. Say matanos, right? Because I'll say we should hate presents. Presents, like working for things. That's a healthy human being. Healthy human beings like working for things and accomplishing things and bringing about certain states of reality and get pleasure from that reality. Right? Okay. So therefore, the Eibusher created the world in such a way that it has to be fixed. The Bara Elokim La'asos, that the Eibusher created the world La'asot. What's La'asot? An appendage at the end of the pasuk. And what does La'asot mean according to Rashi? Litaken, to fix. Rashi and Chumash. Brachis. V'yichul Shema V'aretz. Kiddush, Friday night. Okay. So the Rebbe says that, the Rebbe doesn't say it here. Where does the Rebbe say it, Naich?
In Yud Aleph Nisan, Sicha from Yud Aleph Nisan, Tavshin Lamed Vav, Tavshin Lamed Beis.
Beis. Right? The Sicha, Yud Aleph Nisan, Tavshin Lamed Beis, the Rebbe explains the whole inyan of why it is that the world was created in such a way that you and I have to do Avodah. Right? The Eibusher wants our Avodah. And that's that's also for us. And what is it that we receive as a result of this? Not just that we get something. Again, the question the Rebbe asks over there is, if you're going to say that it's just because of bread of embarrassment and we enjoy more something we've worked for than something we didn't work for, well, why are we like that? Because they gave it to create us that way. So don't create us that way, and then we'll enjoy the free lunch just as much as we enjoy that which we worked for. Don't create us that way. Okay, but he did. Why? What's the advantage? Then that's what the Rebbe says here, without any of the explanation. He just says it here. That's where the explanation is. Yud Aleph Nisan Tavshin Lamed Beis. What does he want? That's what we learned yesterday.
Presence in the lower world that we work.
That's what he wants. He wants presence in the world war. That's what he wants. Why does he want us to do it? Why doesn't he do it?
I didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
It's not the right answer, so don't worry about it. It's not that the information isn't true. It's just not the answer to my question.
What has to do with our work?
Why?
Partnership?
What?
Partnership?
Partnership. Thank you. You weren't even here. I know, but he was listening. He was one of the numbers up there, and the little people there. There was a one there. It was partnership. Shutfus. Right? The Eibusher wants us to be his partner in creation. How are we his partner in creation? The world doesn't reach its ultimate state of perfection unless we are part of that process. Can the Eibusher do it himself? The Eibusher can do anything he wants. There's nothing limiting him in any way, shape, or form. But he didn't want to do it that way. His taiva, that taiva up there in Atzmos, in the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there should be a dir b'tachtonim. The taiva wasn't simply that there should be a dir b'tachtonim, which means a dwelling place of God in the lower realms. That wasn't the taiva. The taiva was there should be a dwelling place in the lower realms that comes as a result of our work. That was the taiva. Why? He wanted us to be a shutuf. He wanted us to be his partner. Being a partner of the Eibusher is quite an amazing thing. Okay, and then we learned some technicalities, and we're going to continue learning some technicalities until the end of Ois Ches. And don't worry about it. We're going to go through it relatively quickly because these ideas are not necessarily. First of all, it's not necessarily what's so important for us to know right now in our journey in learning Chassidus. The thing we just went over is unbelievably important to know, and if you don't write it down and do a review on it, you'll forget it, and it'll be as if you never learned it, which is really chaval, because it's an unbelievably important idea in terms of understanding the way the world works, and who you are and what life down here is all about. Right? It's a basic fundamental of reality. Now we're going to see some technical information that helps explain why it's that way. Okay, so that is more or less important depending on where a person is in learning Chassidus, how much information they have and what information is really important for them to have. So this, I honestly don't know whether this particular piece of information is something so important for you and where you're holding and you're learning of Chassidus right now, but it's here in the Mimer. We're going to learn it. We'll try to understand it basically. And when you come across it in a whole Mimer, and the whole Mimer explains the whole idea, so then you'll have a leg up and you say, oh, okay, yeah, I remember this. When might that happen? I don't know. You'll learn some hemshechim of the Rebbe Rashab and you'll come across all this. All right? The Rebbe talks about it. It's right here. Our Rebbe talks about everything, right? But what's the home address of what we're about to see? Well, it's called the Hemshech Ayin Base of the Rebbe Shop. Okay, so it's not necessarily something that's light reading to read on the bus on the way home. Now there is no bus for the way home, so you certainly can't read anything on the bus on the way home. So there's no bus, but there is a home, Baruch Hashem. There's still a way. There's just no bus. So there's other ways. There's no train either. They took away the train. They took away the bus. So I walk on my hands. It's good. It's good exercise. Okay. So we saw yesterday, the last thing we saw was Ata Sises Shemaim, right? We saw the 3 psukim that we say in Psukim Zimra every day, right after the Halalukas. 3 psukim from Nehemiah. And the middle pasuk says Ata Sises Shemaim V'Sa'aretz. In your siddur, it's not written Chaser, but in the Tanakh, it's written Aleph Taf without a Hey. It's written Chaser. Ata Chaser Hey. It's lacking the Hey. In the siddur, the Hey's there. Okay. So what is that Hey? What did that Hey represent? Who remembers?
The lowest Hey in Shem.
Okay, that's true. Yes.
5 levels of Malchus.
5 levels of Malchus. Beautiful. Okay, and what the technical terms? Remember the technical term? As opposed to levels, which you're right, absolutely, 100%. It's called the 5 partsufim, the 5 countenances, 5, so to speak, faces of Malchus. A panim is a face. A partsuf, when you say to your kid, Lama partsuf hachamutz hazeh? Why have you got that sour expression? Now, where's the expression? His face, right? But that's the countenance of his face. That's the energy his face is expressing out to you. That's the partsuf, right? You'll say to someone, "Hey, the partsuf. Well, what's with the partsuf? Like, what's with the? What do you say in English? Right?
The look on your face.
The look on your face, right? What's that look on your face? So you'd say in Hebrew, "What ma partsuf is it?" Right? You wouldn't say what a panim is. You wouldn't say what a panim is. The panim is the panim, right? But if it's, there's a difference. Okay, so that's the partsuf. So there's 5 partsufim of Malchus, right? 5 different aspects of Malchus. And anybody remember what those 5 are?
Keser, Chachma, Binus, Pnimius.
Pnimius,
Pnimius.
Malchus. Okay, you're fair. Right? Is this something that if we don't remember this, our whole world is going to fall apart? No. Is it reasonable information to remember? Yeah, why not? It's about God. It's always good to know more stuff about God. Right?
This referring to the Hey of God's name?
Malchus, the second, as Moshe said, the second K in Yud K Vav K refers to Malchus. That's the aspect of that light that descends downwards and is the source of vitality for what is below it, whatever it happens to be. Okay? Malchus of any particular world is the source of the next step in reality. So when you talk about 4 worlds, Atzilus, and then what emerges out of that world called Atzilus, a world called Bria. Okay, what's the direct source of Olam HaBria? Malchus of Atzilus. Right? Malchus is that place in Atzilus that gives birth to Olam HaBria. Malchus is feminine. It's the repository of all of the Or, and that gives birth to the next step. What? Repository who gives birth. Right? Malchus. Shechina, femininity. Okay. Malchus in Olam Atzilus and above has 5 different expressions. Why? Well, what do we know? And we know this. All of the spheres contain within them all of the spheres, right? When you count sphera, what do you say every day? Chesed shebechesed, gvura shebechesed, tiferet shebechesed. Because even though the spheres are different expressions of godly reality, they're different expressions of a reality that is in essence one. And so each level of the reality expresses very powerfully not only itself, but all of the other levels of reality. So that goes for 7 times 7 relative to the 7 meters, which is really 6 meters in Malchus, but Peseda. Okay, we call it the 7 meters. Okay, and that also goes for all 10 spheres. Right? So each sphere is expressed in each. Okay, so then the 5 different expressions of Malchus are Keser, Chochma, Bina, Zoh, the 6 midas, and Panemius Malchus, the Panemius of itself, its own inner essential reality. And then what is that? How does that express itself? 5. Keser, Chochma, Bina, Zoh, Panemius Malchus. Right? And how does that express itself? Through a binyan shalem, a whole expression of Malchus itself. Okay, so what happens to Malchus? What did the Eibishter do to that level of godly reality, so to speak? He broke it. He broke it. What does that mean? Okay, so what that means in real life is that Malchus does not reveal that which it is ultimately destined to reveal. Godliness. It reveals external reality. It reveals something that looks like it's not godliness. Looks like something, it reveals something that expresses imperfection, not perfection. Something that expresses self, not bittul. Bittul meaning a connection to God. It expresses its own reality. Well, that's Elamazim. Now, what did the Eibishter want? That's exactly what he wanted. He wanted a world where godliness is hidden. And then he put this thing in that world called a Yid, who has a Nefesh Elokis, who has a godly soul, and said, fix it. Reveal me there. I'm going to give you all the tools necessary. Torah, mitzvahs, and a godly soul. Get it together. Do it. And we're still futzing around trying to figure out how to get it done.
So if God's Ratzon was for us to fix it and to do it, why would Moshe ask for that God fix it and basically go against God's will?
It was a tefillah l'meisha. That was exactly the question. What was tefillah l'meisha?
He was asking Hashem to fix his burned city.
No, that's what we. I did it again. This time I didn't get myself, right? But I ruined my whole cup of coffee. We answer. Well, your question's a good question. It's a question the Rebbe asked, and that's what we've answered. Our mimers answered that question.
He wanted.
Where's it coming from?
Because he lived that reality.
Where is it coming from? Where is the fixing coming from?
From God.
No, absolutely not.
He's asking the king to.
Absolutely not. Where's it coming from? This is what the mimer just explained to us. What's it called? What's that fixing called? Anybody can answer this question. You should all be able to answer this question. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that we'll get the floor later. Don't worry about it. Right? What was the question the Rebbe asked? What word is used relative to what Moshe is doing that indicates that it's coming from below? Tefillah. Tefillah l'Moshe. The work is coming from below. Right? How is it that you and I are, so to speak, asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to fix it? By fixing it. By working from below. It's all coming from below.
So Moshe tried to fix it himself when he was davening? That was him trying to fix it?
Not himself. Moshe asking that our Avodah should bring about the fixing. But it has to come from below. That's the whole point of the mimer so far, this part of the mimer. Tefillah l'Moshe has come from below. That's why it's called Tefillah l'Moshe. That was our question.
But it's a command that it should be rebuilt to.
I understand what it says, and we also understand how the Rebbe explained it. I'm not smarter than the Rebbe. The Rebbe read the words. Right? So, no, but I have to open up and be able to understand what it is that I'm learning, right? As opposed to say, no, it says this and that can't mean anything else. The Rebbe just told us what it means. Why is it called Tefillah l'Moshe? Because the dagesh is on the Avodah from below. That's what's so astounding. Ah, yes, it's true. The Medrash says that the third one goes and asks the king to decree that it should be fixed. How is that decree fulfilled? Through Arved. The king did decree it should be fixed. That's exactly what he did. The king said, I want you to fix that. Right? You have a broken pipe in your house, and your house is flooding with all sorts of weird stuff. Your wife says, can you do me a favor? Can you fix this? What do?
You either call a plumber.
You call a plumber, exactly. You get someone who knows how to fix it, right? And he fixes it. So then she said, I see you took care of You took care of it, right? Well, I didn't exactly take care of it. I mean, it was taken care of, but not exactly by me, but, sort of by me. Okay. That's what we do, right? I drove here. Well, not exactly. My car did. I mean, I didn't, right? But eat that fast in class, Daniel. We don't eat in Chassidus. It's pretty cold out there, isn't it? Okay, right? Okay, so now let's see what we've got here. Let's see what we've got. Hey Partsufim. Now, again, this is going to be somewhat technical, but I want to go through it relatively quickly. Okay? See right in the middle of the page the Hey Partsufim, and there's some brackets and there's some parentheses. Ata. We'll start from there, right in the middle. Ata, Choser Hey. Right? Right in the middle, Mamash. Dezesha Malchus in Oisches. Dezesha Malchus Nases Makor Lahaves Ha'olamus. That which Malchus becomes the source to bring into being. Lihiot is to be. Lehavot is to cause to be. To bring into being the worlds. Asisa es Shemaim. Ata. As in the footnote 55, which we're not going to read inside, but the Rebbe makes a diuk. Ata. First there's Ata. There's Choser Hey. The, so to speak, limiting of Malchus, and that's what brings about Asisa es Hashemayim v'Haaretz. That's what brings about the seemingly independent existence of the world. Hu al yedei, how was that brought about? Al yedei shenechseru mimenu hei partzufim. That there's a certain lacking in Malchus. Ata, Choser Hey, v'yesh leimar. These are the last lines we read yesterday. That which was lacking in Malchus, meaning that fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in such a way that he's not obviously visible in the world, and that's called the lacking of Malchus. That's what that means. Who, that reality, or Shoresh Vasiba, that's the source and the reason, the fact that the world lacks. Because the source of the world lacks. Why? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted it to. He affected himself in such a way that he would be concealed. Everything that was created in the 6 days of creation requires fixing. That's in order the fixing or the filling of the lacking of Malchus. Why did he able to do that? He wanted us to do it. He created a lack in order that you and I should fix it. So we should be shutfim with the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the creation of the world. Now, to put that in personal egotistical terms, what we do actually means something and matters. It's actually real, right? Lots of things we do have absolutely no significance whatsoever. And interesting enough, the more I'm into myself, and the more I think my life is about me, the more I spend my time doing things that are completely and totally insignificant and don't mean anything. The more I'm into something real, the more my life will be an expression of significant behavior. Which is really interesting. Because the more I think I'm significant, the more I spend my time doing insignificant things. Because all I'm doing is filling up me. I'm making sure that the sushi that I bought was just perfect in the right store. So I'll drive across town. And then, of course, I'll be very, very vocal in telling everybody I know the best place to buy sushi. And that will be part of my persona. And I'll make sure everybody knows. I'll put it on my whatever we put it on these days. I was going to say Facebook, but I think that Facebook is like, basically I'm a dinosaur. Okay, right? Okay. Whereas if I realize hold on a second, this experience I have of existence, it's not about me. It's about revealing something much bigger than me. Then I might actually spend my day doing actions that have beyond infinite significance, which is pretty crazy that you and I get to do that. Because we're not exactly beyond infinite, right? We're pretty powerfully aware of our own finite and limited reality. Okay. So it's interesting, most of us do have some sort of natural desire to transcend that limitation, but we'll often try to do it within the context of limitation, which means it's not really transcending limitation. So the guy in the underwear who's trying to jump over the high bar, right? So he's trying to break through limitation because no one's ever high jumped this high before. So he's breaking a barrier. So there is something impressive about doing something that no one else has ever done. He worked very, very hard to do this. But he in no way, shape, or form is expressing transcendence. All he did was create a new level of gvul, a new level of limitation. Nothing new happened. It's impressive that he did it. But if he had taken that energy and actually tried to do something significant, imagine what he could have accomplished in life. Instead, he spent his day in his underwear jumping over a bar. That's what he's been trying to do his whole life. Now again, the fact that he did it the way you and I can learn from him to be completely and totally dedicated to something and work hard to accomplish it, 100%. And he's very impressive in that. But it's a complete and total waste of time that he dedicated his whole life to. What a chaval. If he makes a living from it, okay, say it, so he made a living. So that at least he made a living. I don't know. Do you make a living from jumping over bars? Maybe now you do. Right? In the old days you didn't. I don't think. What was his name? Fosbury, the Fosbury flop. I don't think he made any money. I don't know. Just whatever. Okay, but if you can support your family, okay. You're supporting your family by jumping over a bar in your underpants, right? And there's guys who put balls through hoops in their underpants, right? Okay, Beseder. So they make a lot of money doing that. What they're doing is absolutely irrelevant. It's interesting to watch because they're so transcendent of you. So people are very taken by that. Wow, do you see what he just did? You see what that guy just did? I can't do that. So that there's something to that. We're drawn to that transcendence. But it's not transcendence, that's the problem. There's real transcendence. What's that? Putting on tefillin. That's real. It's not as hard as, making a three-pointer under pressure. It's relatively easy. But who cares? Hard, easy. It's real. Right? And everything we do can have that significance, which is really quite astounding. Because the Eibishter said, I want you to be my shutaf, which is most astounding gift we're ever going to be given. But this isn't a gift we have to hate because we have to work really hard to get it. Right? Not that the hard work isn't enjoyable, but we have to work really hard to get it. We're going to work hard at something in life. Might as well be real. The gam shatzim. Now the Rebbe is getting technical, okay? The gam shatzimsum hayarak ba'or shaylach la'elamis. That even though we're talking about this diminishing, this chisaron, this lacking in malchus. Okay, so we're saying that, and that's all that magical word that everybody knows is one of the first words in Kabbalistic jargon that a person learns is tzimtzum, right? Constriction. Okay, important word. So there is a level of light that is truly processed and limited. And that level of light is called, and you and I know this because we've seen these three different levels of light, that's called Or Mamale. Right? Then there's a level of light that you and I call infinite light, and that's our Seviv. And then there's a level of light that's really beyond even the limitations of infinite, and that's called Atzmus Ein Sof. Okay, those are the three levels of light we saw in our Maimer already. So we can talk about those because we've seen them. And if we did review in the Maimer, we'd know them. Okay. Now the Rebbe is going to talk about an incredibly lofty level of godly reality. Those three levels of light before Tzimtzum, meaning at the very beginning of any reality outside the essence of God. That those three levels of light have a source in three levels of light before what you and I called Tzimtzum Rishon, before that light was diminished in any way, shape, or form. Okay. What does it look like up there? I don't know. But you better go at night, because in the day it's very bright. And when I was a kid, so we used to make fun of the Polish space program. When America and Russia were rushing to get to the moon first, America won. And so the Poles decided that they were going to go to the sun, shoot everybody to the sun. So the other scientists, the Russian and American scientists, said, hey, you going to go to the sun, you're going to burn up. I said, no, we'll go at night. It's mutter to smile. Nothing's going to happen if you smile. Nothing happens. It's actually good for you. They say that a smile is actually good for your heart. Some people have a hard time smiling. It's all right. It's good for you. Smiling is good. Especially good for the guy next to you if you smile. Because he feels better because you're smiling. Right? Famous Sikha where the Rebbe is talking to someone in the room. And that person has obviously written the Rebbe or told the Rebbe about a medical issue that he has. And the Rebbe says, he has a medical issue. He's in the room. The Rebbe says he's in the room. There's a medical issue. I don't understand why he has, and the Rebbe used the word partsuf. He says, why he has such an unhappy partsuf. And he seems so worried. There's nothing he can do about it on Shabbos. Everything that's been done can be done. And so his job on Shabbos is to be besimcha, because he can't do anything about it. And the fact that he's sitting there with his unhappy face, not only is he unhappy, but everybody around him is affected by his unhappy face, and they're also feeling unhappy. So if you're looking gloom, right, brighten up. Maybe you don't care about yourself being all gloomy. Say to her, that's your own issue. But you're making the people around you gloomy. That's a terrible thing to do to people around you. Don't make them gloomy, make them happy. Right? Affect them positively. Every person you encounter in life should feel better after the encounter they had with you. If you ran into them on the street, you bought something in their store, you sat in their cab, whatever it is, see to it that they feel a little better after they met you than they did before they met you, and then you actually accomplished something of worth. That includes a smile. Judaism isn't so serious, don't worry about it. And if you're going to be serious about something, be serious about being besimcha. And you'll be okay. Some people, right? That the tzimtzum is in the world, the light that's relevant to the worlds, right? I mean, that we know, okay? That's true. Now the Rebbe, look what the Rebbe says here, Ba'or hagvul, in the light of limitation, and then the Rebbe says in brackets, and this is why we're forced to talk about these levels, Sharash hamamale, the source of Or Mamale, not Or Mamale, the source of it. Where? What do you mean the source of it? Oh, so now we're talking about three different levels of light that exist way, way, way up there in reality, right, before what we call tzimtzum. Okay? Say. So there's what's called Or HaGvul, the light of limitation, meaning the light that's going to be the source of limited reality. Or HaBilti Gvul, the light that's unlimited, which will be the source of infinite light that you and I call Or Sevev. And there's going to be Etzem Or, the essence of the Or, which is the source of that level of light that you and I call Atzmus Or Ein Sof in our Maimer. Okay? That's all the Rebbe is going to say. And okay, say there. Three different levels of. I don't have to write them on the board because they're right here. Three different. They're right here. We're going to see them in a second. Right? The three different levels of light up there that are the source for the light that you and I talk about, so to speak, down here. Okay? That's all we're saying. Difficult, yes, meaning there's whole Maimarim discussing this, and that's when you learn the Maimarim, that you're talking about a level of reality that is so completely mufshat, so completely divorced from anything that you experience that it's hard to wrap your head around it. right? And you just sort of look at your chavrusa and laugh and go, what are we talking about exactly? Like, what does this really look like? Haven't got a clue, but we can sort of understand the math of it all. But I mean, where are we? The Rebbe Shab will take you up there somewhere and you're discussing different levels of things. Okay, say the. But that's everything down here has a source up there. So even the levels of godliness that are part of the creative process have a source in a level completely and totally beyond the creative process. Okay, that's what the Rebbe is explaining now. Okay, so we'll go through it relatively quickly. Ba'or hagvul, sharash hamamale, v'gam ba'or habilti gvul. Also the unlimited light, and again we're talking about three levels of light before Tzimtzum Rishon. Before the first Tzimtzum. Gam ba'or habilti gvul, which is Sharash hasevev.
Did you see gratis?
No, Sharash hamamale. The Gam ba'or habilti gvul, Sharash hasevev, the source of Or Sevev, the source of the infinite light that we've been talking about. Ella, Shepu'ulas at Tzimtzum ba'or hagvul, this effect of Tzimtzum in the light of limitation, meaning the light that this is completely unlimited godly energy. But what is this godly energy all about? Allowing for the expression of limitation. That place in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is the source of the ability of existence to express itself in a limited way. What's the source of that? A place in the Eibishter, a place in God, right? But sometimes here it's being called Hagvul, sometimes it's called Koyach Hagvul, the power of limitation that exists in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's a power, so we'll call it the power of finite. How's that? The power of finitude that exists in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Is it finite? Of course not. It's a power in the Eibishter that allows for finite reality to come into existence, so to speak, way down there. Okay, but it's that power of the Eibishter that allows that to happen. Then there's a power, Koyach habilti gvul, the power of infinite in the Eibishter. What's that the source of? Infinite light. What's the power of gvul the source of? The power of limitation? A light that can express itself in finitude, or mamalik. And then there's a level that's beyond both. Which is why both can dance together. And one can give birth to the other. Infinite, so to speak, what so to speak comes out of that infinite light, some sort of finite state. Okay. Difficult stuff, I agree. But don't get the general idea. You don't have to worry about all of the particulars. You want to write some of it down? Okay, you write down these three different levels. So you'll know they're there, and then you'll come across them someday when you're learning Chassidus, and you have more basic knowledge, and it'll fit into a place that makes a lot of sense. But as we've said many times, there's nowhere to start in Chassidus. You can't start with the easy stuff. There's no easy stuff. It's all talking about God. So we just add pieces to our understanding as we go along. Ela shepulas atzimtzum ba'or gvul hu ba'or or atzma shenasa ba'yiriv agbola. Sorry. V'gam ba'or abiltikul, 4 lines up. V'gam ba'or abiltikul, shorish ha'seviv. Now the Rebbe explains. Ela, but just explaining parenthetically, how does Tzimtzum work in these different levels? Pa'ulas Tzimtzum, the effect of Tzimtzum ba'or gvul, in the light which is the source of Or Mamale, ultimately what happens? Hu ba'or atzma. The light itself is processed so it can express itself in finitude. That's Or Mamale. That's the light that is, we talked about this earlier in the Maimar. The godly energy, and when we say light, we mean godly energy. The godly energy that is directly responsible for created reality. That means also finite reality. What's powering you? What is clothed in you, giving you existence and vitality? Godly light. What level of godly light? That's called Or Mamale, the light that fills. Okay. We also know there's a light that surrounds. In powers of the soul, what did we say? A mashal for the light that fills, the power of sight that fills the eye and gives the eye the ability to see. The power of hearing, which, so to speak, fills the ear and the auditory nerves and the auditory center of the brain and all that, so that you can hear. The power of speech, which is clothed in your mouth and your tongue and your larynx and your palate and all those different parts of us that go into making all the different noises that we make, that if we share that language, we can understand the noises. And if we don't share that language, so then the person's making perfectly intelligible noises, but I haven't got a clue what in the world he's saying, which is really bizarre. I mean, you think about it, how language works. It's just so strange. A person could walk in here and start speaking Parsi, and he'd be making, relatively similar noises to the noises I'm making now in the language I'm speaking. We wouldn't have a clue what he's talking about. It's crazy. It's like a weird thing. Okay, so that's how languages work. But we're all making the same noises. Why? Well, because, you can make a b with your lips and a p with your lips and a s and a l. Try doing a l without having your tongue touch the top of your mouth. Can't do it, right? Put it on the top. Oh, okay. So different parts of the body or different parts of the mouth are responsible for different noises, right? The closest you can come, I'm not picking on you, the closest you can come to an Indian accent, it's a hard accent to copy, but the closest you can come is to put your tongue on, try to say everything you're saying with, not you don't have to do this, we have to do this. Put your tongue on the top of your mouth and start talking. It's very hard to do because you're moving your tongue around, but your accent will sound more like an Indian accent than a Canadian, American, British. I was going to the store and I found the way you'll sound. It's like interesting.
Yeah.
What? What?
You gotta cut that out.
No, I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Every language also has an inflection, right? Have you ever heard on the bus Ethiopians talking to each other? Everything's very, very high pitched. It's a completely high pitched language. Now you talk to the same person in Hebrew, they will talk to you in this pitch. Which is interesting. That language is that for whatever reason is just a high pitched language. When they're talking to each other, it's very, very high pitched. Men, women, doesn't matter. The same guy, talk to him in Hebrew. Baruch Hashem, that's just the way the language works. Right? So the accent obviously is going to be in line with that. And their accent in other languages will be in line with that. Right? Thai, evidently. The same word can mean 6 or 7 things depending on the inflection. Right? There was one before Chabad made it to Thailand. There was one Jewish family in Thailand. There was a Jewish woman who married a Thai guy, had a bunch of kids, and ended up getting frum. So all of her kids grew up in Thailand, had a Thai father, but they were Jewish, had a Jewish mother, and they all got frum, and they all came to yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. And I know a number of people. I personally did not teach any of them, but I know my brother taught a number of the girls, etc. And they explained how the language worked. Fascinating. The same noise. If you say it with this inflection, it'll mean completely different things. Completely different. So you really have to know your stuff when you're listening to someone speaking Thai, and you have to really listen because it's all in the inflection, which is fascinating. So every language is different. That's how languages work. Okay. The Abishter spoke and created the world. What did he do? That's all mamale. It's the revelation of godly existence in finite reality, and down here, the godliness is all hidden. Not in the metaphysical worlds. In the metaphysical worlds, godliness is not hidden, but down here, godliness is all hidden, completely. Okay. And so they're very powerfully aware of the limited hay down here. That's all it seems.
You mentioned 3 different lights. Have we still only mentioned 2, or you did mention all 3?
Well, no, we mentioned. No, you're right. We did not yet mention the third one up there. Up there, we didn't. We've talked about that level of the essence of Ein Sof. That was Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what we've talked about in the Maimer. But you're right. Here we only talked about the Or HaGvul and the Or HaBilti Gvul, the limited light and the unlimited light, which is the source of Mamale and the source of Sovev down here. You're right. But I mentioned the third level, which is called Etzema Or, the essence of the light. Okay, which will, does the Rebbe say it in the Maimer? I think he does. What?
Which one was limited and
Or HaGvul, the light of Gvul means limitation. Now that doesn't mean the light's not limited up there. This is godly reality. But it's the place in the Eibishter that will be the source of limitation. Right? Meaning, why is that an important thing to understand? Limited reality is not non-godly reality. What's nature? Nature isn't something that hides God. Nature is God going like that. What's this? It's also me. Right? This is no less me than this. But if you see this, you know a lot about me. Right? Look at someone's face, but the word panim in Hebrew, word panimut, you know what they're really all about. Are they a happy person? Are they a sad person? Are they an intelligent person? Are they not such an intelligent person? Right? You can tell a lot from a person's face. Okay. Can't tell anything about the person, right? Now, you'll say the person's hiding himself. Well, on a certain level, yes. If you're 4, you'll go like that and go, oh, you can't see me. Okay, that's cute. It's pretty dumb if you're 20, right? But it's cute if you're 4. Okay, so, but it's so interesting was what's the dynamic of that? This completely external part of me is concealing the internal part of me. So to speak, real me. That's nature. What's nature? Nature is not nature hides God. Nature is God hiding God. Nature is Shem Elokim, the name of constriction, the name of tzimtzum. God concealing himself. But it's God concealing himself. What's the mashal in Chassidus? You're trying to explain an idea to someone who doesn't understand things as clearly as you understand. Okay, so what are you going to do? So you're going to take the idea as it resonates in your head, and you're going to express it to him in a different way. Because if you were to express to him what resonates in your head, he wouldn't understand what you're talking about. When the doctor comes and explains to you what's going on with you, he doesn't say what he just said to the doctor next to him. The doctor next to him, he says, well, actually, he's got Mackenzie's syndrome. Oh, what are you doing? And he'll name a couple of medical procedures that he's thinking of doing. Yeah, but that might affect Yeah, oh, well, in order to offset that, we're doing this and this and this also. Now, that conversation with his fellow doctor might take, 45 seconds? Okay. Now, if he wants to explain all of that to you, it might take him 15 minutes, right? Now, there's some things you're just not going to understand. You say, look, there's a certain part of your system that's not working right, and this is what's happening. This is what it should do, and this is what it's doing now, and we're trying to move it back to where now. So therefore, this is what we're going to be doing in order to do that. Now, I'm not going to understand how that works. The other doctor will, because he studied, but I don't. Okay, we're going to be doing this procedure in order to try to get that part of your body to go start doing what it is that it's supposed to do, as opposed to what it's doing right now. That might have certain complications relative to some other part of you. And in order to offset that, we're going to be, doing this regimen of drugs or whatever it happens to be. And generally this works out, and we hope within 2 or 3 weeks it'll all be taken care of. Okay. Now he could say that in 30 seconds to the doctor next to him. If he says what he says to the doctor next to him, you won't understand a word that he said. What does he have to do to you? A lot of tzimtzum. Right? He has to take his intellect, bring it down to the level of your intellect, and reveal it. We'll use light as a muscle. Reveal it in light, in words and ideas, that your intellect is a kli for, is a receptacle for. Because if all he says is the light that he just taught, the intellectual light that he just passed to the next doctor, you're going to look at him and go, what'd you say? Oh, but he's not going to do that. What's the Rebbe doing?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Wow.
taking an idea about Elokus and bringing it down to a level that you and I can understand. Theoretically, when it works, that's why I'm saying only theoretically, because I'm talking about myself. But someone who knows how to do this, so what? They'll take the idea on the page, bring it down to a level that the student can understand and explain it. Is that what the teacher's necessarily thinking about when he learns it himself? No, because he learned it already. And if you were to talk about, if Rabbi Vichnan were to stand at the door and hear me explaining this, would he hear what you're hearing? No. He'd hear all the panemius of what's going on the page, because he knows the mimer. Right? So, that's an interesting way to explain it. He explained it like, so-and-so explains it and not like so-and-so explains it. Because there's two different ways there's two different mashalim to use for that. And he might ask me, why did you do that? Why did you explain it that way and not that way? You didn't hear that. Did I say that? Yes. I did say that. How do I know? Well, Rabbi Vichnan heard that. How could he hear it if I didn't say it? But to you, it was completely hidden. Why? Well, because you're not aware of the fact that there's two different ways of understanding this, but he is. Oh. So you and I can hear more God in the reality that we experience, the more we learn about God. Just like Rabbi Vichnan will hear more of what someone teaching a line in Chassidus is saying, because he learned more Chassidus, so he has more background or some more whatever for that information to come into and be processed by. His klee's bigger, so the ore is bigger. So what are you and I trying to do when we're learning Chassidus? Get a bigger kli, so that we can hear more godliness in the reality that's happening all around us. Just like Rabbi Vichnan will hear more of what I'm saying than you guys, just because he's learned more. And he'll say, why did you explain it wrong? Why didn't you explain it right? I say, okay, well, I did my best. Okay. It's a mashal Rebbe Shab in a famous matter called V'yadaita Moskva, where the whole mashal of Havaya Elokim, infinite light, finite light, well, really light and kli, right? The whole mashal is teacher-student. Interesting enough, if you ask a good question, or the teacher wants to reveal a completely new idea, what's the teacher going to do first? Stop talking. He's got to think about something. So he's not revealing himself right now. He stops talking. Why? In order to bring about a new revelation in his intellect. Then he'll start talking again, which will bring about a new revelation in your intellect. But first it has to resonate in his. That's the mashal for some of the darkest moments that we experience in life. So to speak, the Eibishter completely hides. Why? Because he's got to reveal a new light. And in order to reveal that, he's got to hide first, so to speak. Wow.
You take like 5 minutes now? Or?
The Eibishter? Sometimes it can be 5 years, 1939 to 1945. It can take a while sometimes. V'yadaita Moskva, it's called. It's called V'yadaita. V'yadaita. We say it in Elena. V'yadaita yom v'shevese levavecho ki havaya hu Elokim. It explains the idea of havaya hu Elokim. What do you mean havaya is Elokim? That's like saying black is white, or white is black, right? Havaya is one level of godliness, and that's all about light, and Elokim is all about kalim, and all about the revelation of plurality, and that's why the word Elokim is actually a plural word. It's the source of plurality, source of multiplicity, meaning the concealment of Hashem Echad. Yud Kei Vav Kei Echad. Elokim is plural. What, so God's plural? Oh, chas v'shalom. He's one, but he allows himself to be expressed in multiplicity. That's Or Mamale, which is the light that fills Kalim. Okay, come. We have to finish this paragraph. It's a couple of lines on the next page. We have to finish it today. V'yadaita was just said in Moskva. It's a mimer that the Rebbe Shab said when he needed. He went to Moscow. Moscow was where all the hospitals were and the universities were, Petersburg was the capital, but Moscow was the intellectual capital of Russia. That's why it became the capital after. And that's where the hospitals were. So he went to Moscow to have an operation, and he said the Maimer via Daita, and the doctors checked him out, and they said he didn't need the operation. So, but it's called Yadaita Moscow. Makar Laves Ha'ilmas. Elo, Shapulas at Simson Ba'ar Gvul, who Ba'ar Atzma, in the light itself. So to speak, the light itself is processed, to use the word change is dangerous, but okay, sort of changed. Shenasa Ba'yurido, there's brought about it in a descent, Vahagbola, and a limitation, Va'ad Shenasa, until it becomes Makar, a source, Lahaves Esailames, to be the source of worlds. Upa'ulis at Tzimtzum, now we're going to say that Tzimtzum also affects Sevev in a different way. Upa'ulis at Tzimtzum, the effect of Tzimtzum, of the limiting of the light, Ba'or Abilti Gvul, in the infinite light, the unlimited light, well, unlimited light means there's no Tzimtzum, doesn't it? Hurak Shaloi Ya'ir B'makom HaChalal, is only that it won't shine in the place of the, so to speak, empty space. Okay? We have to explain something about this. Okay? So to speak, I mean, we can only do it in very physical images, but those are the images that we're taught in Kabbalah, because we're physical people, we can only understand these sort of things. Right? Atzmus, the essence of God, decides for some strange reason, I'd like worlds, but particularly this world, because I want a dir b'tachtonim. What happens? There's an explosion of unbelievable light. Tzimtzum Rishon, that light is, so to speak, sucked back into its source. What does that leave, so to speak? So it's called the Makom Chalal, the empty space. So now Chassidus makes a great effort to make sure that you don't think that empty space means it's devoid of godliness, because there's no such thing. It can't exist. What's that space? What does that Tzimtzum allow for? The possibility of finite reality. That's the empty space. The empty space creates the notion of space. It's not physical space. It's not godly reality. We're nowhere near physical space. We're so far away from that in terms of the whole process. Okay, but the image is the space. What does the space allow for? I've now created the reality called limitation. I've created limitation. That's Tzimtzum Rishon. Right? Then what happens? Bing! The kav, the shaft of light is bekeya, it bursts into the halal. What's that? That's the source of the malin. That's the source of the light that's going to express itself in finitude. Okay? You'll see those three things now. The halal, we just saw the Goma halal. You'll see something called kav. Kav is the source of mamale. Basically, that's what kav is. What's the notion of a kav? A shaft. What does the shaft allow you to appreciate? Beginning, end, up, down. Some notion of limitation. Is that itself limited? Completely and totally beyond limitation. But it's that place in godliness that will be the source of that, down there. So that's what the Rebbe is saying here. So what about Sevev? So there's a level of light that so to speak, we talked about this earlier. How does Tzimtzum affect it? It's not limited. The light itself isn't limited in any way, shape, or form. But the light is limited to the extent that there's a place it can't be revealed. Because there's now this new place called limitation, and this unlimited light can't be revealed. Let's use, again, better to use the word finite and infinite, because those words are easier to explain this. There's now a reality where finitude could come into existence. So what can't be revealed there? Infinite can't be revealed in finitude. Okay, so that's the limitation of infinite. Now we've talked about that quite a bit in order for us to appreciate the fact that God's not infinite. Because if you say God's infinite, he's limited, because that means he can't be expressed in finite. That's not true. That's what we're learning here, which is so astounding. In the Eibishter himself, there's a power of finite and a power of infinite, which is not called that finite and infinite up there, it's called limitation and beyond limitation. Limited and unlimited. Because the Eibishter is beyond that. The Eibishter himself. So there's different levels of light being revealed up there, and that's the source for the light as it reveals itself down here. Okay? We got to finish this. I'm sorry, we're going to go 5 minutes over. We have to finish this. The Zeo shebe'igul hagadol, in the great circle. What's the great circle? Arabilti gvul, unlimited light. Naga b'ha tzimtzum. Tzimtzum touches it. It doesn't diminish the light, but that light is somehow affected by tzimtzum to the extent that there's now a place where there'll be a sign that tells that light, do not enter. You can't go here because this is a different state of reality. The inyan negiyas at tzimtzum, this idea of the touching of tzimtzum, negiyah means to touch. Doesn't penetrate, doesn't affect, but it touches it. Hu sha'or yerak, is that the light will only be sham up there in its unlimited expression, but ba'igul in what's called the great circle. V'loi yizgal l'chutz, and it won't be revealed outside of that state. Now that level, the third level of light that Kalman asked about and Yosef asked about, which I had mentioned outside, but now it's here. About be'etzem or, in the essence of the light, not the light of limitation, that's the source of limitation, and not the light that's the source of infinite, but the essence of the light itself. There's no notion of constriction, there's no notion of diminishing in any way, shape, or form. And that's the source of that etzem. Oh, come on, are you serious? Okay, no, you don't have to go anywhere yet. It means between 5 and 10 minutes, there's going to be an alarm, and when the alarm sounds, you have about a minute and a half to get somewhere, which is pretty much around here. Okay, so we can finish this. So now we have about a 4-minute what?
Yeah, it's because it's notification phone.
I know, but okay. There's a flashlight shooting at us.
Oh, sorry, is it done?
No.
Okay.
Well,
It's just the phone getting excited about the fact. The phone loves this stuff.
At least
Gets very excited. No, come on, we have to finish this fast now. The Iranians are making us finish this fast. Aval be'etzem ha'or lo yaya tzimtzum klal. Hainu, shatzimtzum gam lo noga bo, didn't even touch it. Shalochin, therefore, mitzad or zeh, in terms of this light, efshar liyes agilui gam be'elamus. This is the level of light that can also be revealed in the world. That's what Moshe's saying. I want this level of light that's beyond any diminishing whatsoever. That's what Moshe asks for, right? I want it to be revealed in the world. Now, of course, it's revealed in the world by virtue of our work below. Mikol makim, nevertheless, cave and shakavana b'kol giluyim, and the Rebbe is going to explain this in the next ois, which is absolutely astounding. We're gonna have a class tomorrow. Generally, with Tuesday or Wednesday was review, but we're limited for time because I think we finished Tuesday, and I want you to see the whole mimer. So we might not have a review day because I do want you to see the whole. I want to finish the mimer before we have to break for the summer. Gamba gilui de etzema or shalamayla migeder kevin shekavana b'chol giluim. The intention of all levels of revealed reality, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow morning because time is of the essence now. There's bombs heading our way. Welcome to Elam Hazeh, little neshamala. Gamba gilui de etzema or. Even in the revelation of the essence of light, shalamayla migeder elamus, that's completely beyond any notion of worlds. Lamayla gam, also beyond gam misharish, the Seviv Kalam, even beyond the source of infinite light. The most powerful expression of reality outside the essence of God, and we'll talk about that tomorrow at length. Hu bishvil Yisrael. It's ultimate for the sake of Yisrael. Why? Everything that exists, every level of godly reality that exists, the highest, the level of godly reality that's responsible for the existence of a slug, every level of godly reality that exists in order that there should be a place called Elam Hazeh that you and I should do a Veda. So up there in the essence of God, what's he thinking about? I want Yidden to put on tefillin. Okay. Everything that happens is connected to that desire of God. Because that's the avodah he wants to help bring about a dir b'tachtonim. So when you put on tefillin today, you can think about that. L'chein gam hamshachas or zeh al yidei avodas adam. So even drawing down the highest level of godly light is a result of avodas adam, because the whole purpose of everything is avodas adam, and we'll see that in test. The Rebbe is going to explain that in an absolutely astounding way relative to Kriyat Shema. So we'll actually get into some avodah and we'll understand the avodah more. Okay. I think okay, I'm going down to my little hole downstairs because it's where I go anyway. So, last night, 12 o'clock, there was one of these, but in the end there was no azakah. So hopefully that'll be the case now. Unfortunately, that means there were sirens in the center of the country.